I never thought I would say this out loud, not even to myself, but everything I am now began the day my sister looked at me and said, "You're not as strong as you pretend to be." At the time, I laughed it off. I was the elder brother, the responsible one, the quiet shadow who stayed invisible so no one would ask questions. She was the bold one, sharp-tongued, fearless, always seeing through people. What I didn't realize was that she had been watching me for years, noticing the pauses in my voice, the way my eyes lingered on things I wasn't supposed to notice, the way I flinched whenever someone joked about masculinity like it was a rulebook everyone else had memorized except me. It started after our parents left town for a week. Just the two of us in the house, old walls echoing with unspoken truths. She found the box by accident. Or maybe it wasn't an accident at all. A few scarves, neatly folded, a soft sweater I'd bought for a friend. Feelings I'd hidden so deep I almost believed they weren't there. She didn't yell. That was the terrifying part. She just sat on my bed and asked, calmly, "Why are you so scared of yourself?" My heart was pounding like I'd been caught committing a crime. I tried to lie, but my voice cracked, and she smiled, not cruelly, but knowingly. That's when she said she wasn't angry, she was curious. She said I'd been living like a half-finished sentence, always stopping before the truth. I wanted her to leave the room, to forget everything, but instead I nodded, because something inside me was tired of running. She asked me to trust her, and I didn't know why, but I did. She told me this wasn't about embarrassment or shame, it was about honesty. When she placed one of her scarves around my shoulders, my hands started shaking. I expected laughter. I expected humiliation. What I got instead was silence, heavy and sacred. She told me to look in the mirror, really look, not at what I was supposed to be, but at what I felt. I saw confusion, fear, and a strange sense of relief that scared me more than anything else. She said softly, "This doesn't make you weak, it makes you real." But reality was dangerous. Reality meant consequences. I whispered that I couldn't do this, that people would never understand. She replied that I didn't need the world to understand yet, I just needed to stop lying to myself. That night, I didn't sleep. Every word she said replayed in my mind. Feminized. The word felt heavy, like a threat and a promise at the same time. I didn't know then that this was only the beginning, that my sister wasn't trying to change me for fun or control, but because she believed I was suffocating inside a role that was never mine. And as the house fell silent, I realized something terrifying and beautiful had already begun, whether I was ready or not. The next morning felt different, like the air itself knew something had shifted. My sister didn't bring up the night before, not immediately. She made tea, hummed softly, acted normal, and that somehow made it harder to breathe. I kept waiting for the joke, the threat, the moment she'd use it against me, but it never came. Instead, she finally said, "If you're going to face this, we do it properly, not in fear, not in hiding." Her calm scared me more than anger ever could. I asked her what she meant, and she looked at me like the answer was obvious. "You've been carrying this alone for too long." She took me to her room, a place I'd never really been inside. It smelled like confidence and familiarity. She opened her wardrobe, not dramatically, not teasingly, just honestly. She said she wasn't trying to turn me into someone else, she wanted me to meet the part of myself I'd buried. My legs felt weak. I told her I wasn't brave enough. She replied that courage doesn't come before the step, it comes because of it. When she handed me a simple top, nothing flashy, nothing extreme, my hands hesitated like they didn't belong to me. As I changed, every sound felt amplified. My heartbeat, the fabric brushing my skin, the voice in my head screaming to stop. But when I stepped out, she didn't clap or laugh. She adjusted the fabric gently and said, "Breathe." In that moment, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't performing. I was existing in a way that felt terrifyingly right. I caught my reflection again, and something cracked open inside me. Not happiness, not yet, but recognition. Like meeting a stranger who somehow knew all my secrets. She told me stories then, about how she'd always known I was different, how she'd protected me in ways I never noticed. She said people confuse softness with weakness, and that lie ruins lives. I felt anger rise up, not at her, but at the years I'd wasted shrinking myself. Still, Fear clung tightly. I asked her what happens when the world sees this. She answered honestly, some will leave, some will judge, but some will see you more clearly than ever before. That afternoon, she made me walk around the house like that, not to punish me, but to normalize it. Each step felt like crossing a line I could never uncross. By evening, exhaustion hit me, emotional and physical. I wanted to stop, to go back to who I was yesterday. But when I took the clothes off, something was missing. The silence felt louder. That's when I understood the trap wasn't what she was doing to me. The trap had been the life I was living before. And I knew, deep down, that whatever came next would demand more honesty than I'd ever given anyone, including myself. The days that followed were the hardest and the most revealing. My sister didn't force me into anything sudden. She knew fear could crush a person faster than ridicule. Instead, she guided me gently, subtly, almost invisibly at first. She would leave little notes on my desk, reminders that identity wasn't a crime, that I had permission to exist as I truly was. She would casually leave a scarf on my chair or a soft sweater on the couch, never pushing, just suggesting. And each time, the same conflict rose in me, the desire to embrace it and the panic of being caught by the world outside these walls. One evening, she said we should go out. My stomach turned over. I tried to protest, tried to make excuses, but she wouldn't let it go. She said softly, "It's only terrifying if you hide forever." That night, I put on the outfit she had chosen, a simple dress, nothing extravagant, just something that felt like an extension of me. Standing in front of the mirror, I hardly recognized myself. My reflection was the same, and yet, it wasn't. The lines of my face softened under the dim light. The way the fabric moved over my shoulders felt intimate, almost comforting. My hands shook as I adjusted it, and she watched quietly, her eyes steady, unwavering. When we stepped outside, the street felt impossibly bright, every shadow sharper, every sound louder. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and strangely alive. People passed, some glanced, most ignored us, but my mind was a storm. My sister held my hand, not in a patronizing way, but as an anchor. Each step I took, I realized, was a choice, not to please her, not to defy anyone, but to accept myself in a world that might not yet understand me. By the time we returned, my legs ached and my chest was tight with emotion I couldn't name. She didn't speak of courage or bravery afterward, but I could see pride in her eyes. That night, lying in bed, I thought about the years I'd hidden. The shame, the silence, the constant self-policing. I realized this wasn't about clothes or appearances. It was about permission. Permission to exist fully, honestly, without apology. Tears came then, unbidden, for the first time in years. She didn't judge, didn't offer clichés or platitudes. She just stayed beside me until they stopped. And when I finally spoke, my voice was raw but steady. I told her I didn't know if I could keep doing this, but I couldn't imagine going back either. She smiled gently, kissed my forehead, and said, "Then we keep going, together." In the weeks that followed, I began experimenting more, cautiously at first. Hairstyles, soft fabrics, colors I'd never dared wear. Each small act of self-expression felt like reclaiming a part of myself I hadn't realized was missing. Sometimes I caught my reflection and froze, wondering if I was imagining this person in the mirror. But more often, I felt a thrill of recognition, as if the mirror was finally telling the truth. My sister became my confidant, my guide, my silent cheerleader. And though fear still lurked, fear of judgment, fear of misunderstanding, I began to realize that hiding had been the far greater danger all along. The transformation wasn't instant, and it wasn't easy. There were mornings I'd wake up wishing it had all been a dream, wishing I could return to the familiar armor of my old self. But the moment I stepped outside my room, the weight of pretense pressed down again, and I knew I couldn't. My sister never let me face that alone. She would hand me a piece of clothing, a scarf, a bracelet, or simply a look of quiet understanding, reminding me that bravery isn't loud, it's persistent. One afternoon, she suggested we visit a nearby cafe. My stomach twisted into knots, but I couldn't refuse. Sitting at the table, feeling the eyes of strangers brush against me, I felt everything at once: fear, exhilaration, and the strange, powerful relief of being seen. People passed by, some curious, some indifferent, and for the first time, I realized that most of the world doesn't care about the small details of who you are. They're too busy with their own lives. That realization didn't erase the anxiety, but it made the courage feel real, not performative. By the time we returned home, I was exhausted, but in a way that felt earned. My sister didn't comment on my expression or my movements. She simply smiled, the kind of smile that carries both pride and love. In that quiet, I understood that what she had been teaching me wasn't about clothes, or appearances, or even gender. It was about claiming my own truth, however frightening it might be. Over time, I began to practice little acts of self-affirmation. Choosing my outfits, experimenting with my voice, even the way I carried myself. Each choice was a rebellion against the fear that had governed my life for so long. There were setbacks, of course. Some days, I felt invisible again, the old doubts clawing back. But my sister's presence, her steady encouragement, became a lifeline. She reminded me that identity isn't a straight path, it's messy, winding, and full of unexpected turns. She never rushed me, never judged me for hesitating. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the mirror stopped feeling like an enemy. I began to recognize the person staring back, a person real, flawed, and unashamed. One evening, as we sat together quietly, she said, "I always knew you'd find your way here." And for the first time, I felt it too, a sense of home in myself. The fear hadn't vanished, but it no longer controlled me. The secrecy, the shame, the hiding, all of it felt like a distant memory. I realized that being feminized by my sister hadn't been about her shaping me. It had been about her helping me uncover the truth I'd been too afraid to face. And in that revelation, I found courage I didn't know I possessed, acceptance I had longed for, and a bond with her that was stronger than anything I had imagined. From that day on, every reflection, every garment, every choice became a testament to survival and self-discovery. I had been broken down, reshaped, and rebuilt, not by judgment, not by ridicule, but by love, patience, and the unwavering belief of one person who refused to let me remain hidden. And I knew, finally, that I could face the world as my authentic self, no matter how it reacted, because the person who mattered most had already seen me fully, and that was enough. This is my story, my confession, my journey. Feminized by my sister, yes, but also awakened, accepted, and, most importantly, free.